believe it is really possible to train human beings to react in combat situations. You understand the difference now?
Absolutely.
And I think that the American Army, because of its, first, my regiment had a lot of old regular Army sergeants. You've got to remember that. We had a lot of old regular Army officers. My regiment had been stationed in Fort Jay, New York, from 1919 till 1942. So all the officers who graduated, not all, but most of the officers who loved New York City, who graduated up the Hudson, actually wanted to be in a regiment that was in New York City. So they would volunteer for the 16th Infantry. Most of our commanders, our company commander, had graduated in 1938 from West Point. He commanded companies in the 16th Infantry. Most of our non-coms that I joined the regiment had been in the regiment for 10 or 12 years. They were old sergeants, really old, bum sergeants, you know. Our commanders, and like battalion commanders, had graduated from West Point in 34, 35 because they wanted to be in a regiment there. It would be unfair for me to try to equate my regiment and the people that I personally know with the rest of the American Army, because the rest of the American Army, like I say, were picked up from here and picked up from here and thrown together and hoped that we got a good homogenized result out of it. But in the first division, they were stationed in New York City and upstate New York for 25, 30 years. And it got good people and it got dedicated soldiers. And you got people who couldn't find a job in civilian life who enlisted in the Army and become sergeants, you know. So I was not disappointed in sergeants and our own officers. I was not disappointed in the training I got. Of course, I was disappointed that there was no way they could make me a hero. There was no way they could inject. I would give anything if they'd had a pill that was a courage pill, and I took it and I suddenly become great. They didn't have that, and I don't think they ever will have it, because I shit my pants as often as anybody did. It was absolutely, there's no way to, when a tank is running over your ass, firing a machine gun, there's no way you can prepare a man for that. You can prepare a man for a tank running over it, but to have the gunner shooting a machine gun at you as he runs on, you can't be prepared. And I don't know of any way you could ever prepare it, except, you know, after Kasserine passed. Well, if it would have happened again, which it did, D+2 in Sicily, it was not so bad. You know, run in a cave and head in there. Oh, big deal, you know. But in Africa, it's all new. Everything is new. We had 3 regimental commanders in Africa. We went in, we made the invasion with a man named Kirk. He was replaced by a man named Colonel Fouché. Both of them were wounded. Then we got a man named George Taylor, who stayed with us until he became a general. Stayed with us still up in Belgium or around Aachen. Then went to become a general and went over to the 4th Division. Terrific officer. Terrific. Absolutely lucky to have been in a regiment that had those officers. On the other hand, I hated the son of the bitches, you know, because I have had to go on combat patrols where they take a machine gun along to capture a prisoner. This is a combat. They'll take a squad of infantry and a machine gun, and you go out with a lieutenant or a sergeant, and your job is Germans and bring them back for interrogation. To me, this was superfluous. What damn difference does it make what numbered regiment is across from where it's the 10th or the 90th or the 2nd or the 15th? Who gives a damn? It's the enemy. That's all that you got to know. But back in the back, they want to know all the details. And they don't hesitate to send your ass out and get it shot off, then something to tell the colonel. You know, can you imagine how good they must have. Well, Colonel, we've got the 72nd Division out in front, and they have their capabilities and blah, 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 and they have this and that. And they got this all from riflemen going out and capturing people to do it. And it always annoyed me. It still annoys me, even now. But of course, that's the way the system is. You can't buck the system. So I hope I haven't bored you, son.
Not at all. Not at all. It's fascinating.
But I'm not rushing off, so I'm no hurry. My wife, she's talking to her golfing friends on the telephone, so don't worry about that. If you want any more information.
What was your opinion of the British?
Absolutely fabulous. So, first, the whole British people, as a people, they are capable of what, even deeper than that. For 1,000 years, maybe even 2,000 years, British women have been saying goodbye to their lovers, their husbands, their sons, because they've gone off in the Navy and gone off to wars and gone off to the colonies, and they've always said goodbye. But for the first time, other than since, I guess it was William the Conqueror, kicked their butts and invaded, for the first time since then, Hitler was going to invade them. And they were ill-equipped, ill-prepared, but the people had the heart to get ready. And they endured bombing, and they endured hardships, and they had nothing but admiration for the British people. Absolutely the courageous people. It's unfortunate, and they have a system. All British royalty are the first to die. And the film I had, outside my village was a castle, and the regimental headquarters was in that castle. Colonel Tigger loved castles. The damn castle in the area, we had to take it for him. You know? But he loved castle. Well, the original owner of this castle was the first pilot in World War II in the British Royal Air Force to get lost and to be killed in World War I. The first pilot had one of those little spades, that little airplane, and he won which is equivalent to our Congressional Medal of Honor. World War II, his son was the first to get the Victoria Cross piloting the Spitfire, both of Royal Flag. And what happened when the American officers got there, and English officers were all of royal blood and lived in Castle, then all of them wanted to emulate them. They all wanted to make people think they were royal blood. In fact, we called them America's royalty. That's what we called us dumb riflemen, Down there goes another royal son of a bitch.
Did you see that North Africa? I mean, what did you think when you got to North Africa and you saw your first British soldier?
I saw my first British soldiers in England.
In England.
In England and Scotland. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when we went to Africa,
we saw them in combat.
We saw them in combat up around Bizerti. We were under the British First Army up at Bizerti, and they're highly disciplined infantry. Highly, really, and they'll blow those down, play those down bagpipes and walk right into hell, This is because of their royalty. Royalty has walked into the breach for 1,000 years, and they're used to it. Germans are the same way. They had their counts and all these commanding regiments and dukes and all this bullshit, and the same thing with England. But they were expected to do that. The Americans, we got our officers. Most officers were not so lucky as the First Infantry Division to have those West Pointers and have all these old soldiers. Another thing that made us so good, we had professional officers.
Were relations pretty good then between officers? Sounds like
and enlisted men?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No?
No. We were an enlisted man, and was almost an untouchable. If you've ever been around Indians in India, You have a certain class of people that the upper class will not touch.
Right.
Because now this is the way the Army was when I went into my regiment. My first sergeant run the company. We had a company commander that was on the polo. He got a horse, and they had polo matches between other regiments, and he wore riding breeches and boots and things that stick out. And sometimes in the afternoon, he'd come down and walk through the company. But the first sergeant ran the company. He'd been running companies for 10 or 12 years. He knew what he was doing. And the company commander signed a few papers. And, of course, the first sergeant and the officers had some mutual respect. And I'm not saying that the officers did not respect the lower rank enlisted men, but they had no association with them until you get into combat. Now you get into combat, and now you've got a young lieutenant, not someone who graduated in 38, but someone just in June of 42. Now he comes to you, and he's got to sleep with you in the mud. He's got to endure whatever hardship you do. Now you have a very close association. Particularly he and the platoon sergeant. They're like brothers. Now the enlisted men again are a little off. But the same with the platoon sergeant. The platoon sergeant was a little standoffish.
Now you became a sergeant major. So when did that happen for you?
Well, it happened. I became a sergeant in the war, but then I got busted after the war. But then slowly I went up through the ranks in the regiment. I stayed in the regiment, and they had to promote me as the oldest man there. Been there longer than anybody, and I become the sergeant major of the regiment. And my association was useless. Absolutely did not exist. I was responsible only to the colonel. I would go in morning at 7:30 on a normal day. The colonel would come in at 8. We'd have a cup of coffee together. And he'd tell me what he wanted me to do that day. He'd say, I want you to take the H-13 helicopter and go out here and see what A companies, how they're doing out in the field. Check B company. And I'd go and look at A company and B company. And I was only responsible to him. No other officer told me what to do. I didn't tell any other officer. I said good morning and saluted them. But I had nothing. They called me sergeant major. Very formal. But my colonel and I were like this. Of course, it worked out great because if one of the companies was having trouble, he'd say, Sergeant Major, find out what the hell's wrong about the D company. And I'd go down to D company and say, First Sergeant, let's go have a cup of coffee. First Sergeant, I'd go to mess hall and I'd say, get your twin sergeants over here. Let's find out what's wrong. And I'd say, the colonel's concerned about what's happening, whatever it was, so maybe Irish or fine, I said, what's wrong? And they tell me what's wrong. You can tell the colonel. He'd relieve a lieutenant or kick somebody's ass or something. And that's the way the sergeant major went. So it's a complete different, it's a little different. Well, are you learning anything, Todd?
I sure am, I tell you. Were you ever wounded?
I was wounded 3 times. I had a sergeant who I really liked. His name was Bottomley, Jim Bottomley. Had false teeth from Brooklyn, New York. And 43 years old. He was a staff sergeant. He got wounded in Osceola. And it was not a serious. He went to the hospital. They sent him to the 34th Division. And he went AWOL in 1944 and come back to England and join us. That was the AWOL. Of course, when we heard that once you got to the hospital, they were sending them to different outfits, we didn't even go to the hospital. They got wounded in the leg. I didn't even go to the hospital because I was afraid they'd send me to an outfit.
So the loyalty was that strong to them.
It was not only loyalty, but fear. I couldn't imagine getting sent to a damn National Guard outfit where the banker was the colonel and the city sheriff was the company commander. I couldn't imagine. I'm like, when I've been with these regular Army people, these professional soldiers. And there is a difference between professional soldiers and non-professional. So there is a big difference. That's not only an attitude. And of course, they had a way of identifying us. If your serial number, like me, I was Private Benjamin C. Franklin, which meant regular Army, 1-4. Well, 1 said that I was enlisted. I enlisted. 4 said I was from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. That 4 said that that's where I'm from. So all the first sergeant had to do was look at my serial number. He knew more about me on my serial than you needed to know. See, now if you were drafted, your number was 3. 3-4. You were drafted from Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. That's the 4 area. Depending if it was 3-2, that was the New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. So your serial number told a lot. So when the person wanted a really good soldier, you just look at your serial number. And he knew who he could get. It's very simple. It's right there. And, of course, I had an incident in Africa that we were up in Medjez, Alabama, which is up in the mountains. Medjez means mountain in Arabic, I guess. We're up so high that it's snowing, up the mountain. Of course, company's way down back here. We had no way of getting water up the mountain or ammunition. And so they first started calling me back. Two sergeants sent me back to the first sergeant. And the first sergeant said, go back to battalion headquarters, battalion S4, and get 3 donkeys. And I said, sorry, no, I don't know anything about donkeys. He said, what the hell do you mean you don't know anything? He said, you're from Tennessee, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, God damn it, you must know something about the damn clodhopper from Tennessee. You messed with the mules on that. So I had to go back, and the son of a bitch bit me. The first donkey I got a hold of, I didn't know what to do with him. He wouldn't come, and he bit me. And I hauled up and hit him in the side of the head and broke my hand. But I made cool. I finally got these damn donkeys, tied them together with rope. And if you twist their tail, they'll go. And they had an Arab there that owned the donkeys. And Ottawa means left. Ottawa means right. And he means go. And I twisted till Ottawa, and they go. And for about a week, more than a week, every night I'd go back to battalion S4 and get rations and a couple of cans of water and ammunition in the saddles over there. Take them up to the platoon, top of the mountain, and I'd come back and sleep all day. See? Other some bitches up on the mountain, freezing to death, and back here comfortable, sleeping on it, So, and the captain thought I did a good job, so he made me go.
You mentioned the Arab that was he renting the donkeys out, or how did that work?
I really don't know. The most amazing thing you've ever seen. There are 2 things that are unbelievable in Africa. You can go in the desert and nothing is alive. You open a can of sea rations, there'll be 1 million flies on it in 2 minutes. It'll be covered black with flies, number 1. Number 2, if you stay there half a day, there'll be 1,000 Arabs there picking up your trash. Every can you throw away, they pick it up and clean out the inside of the sea ration can. They just come from nowhere. And of course, when we got people killed, they rob the dead. They take the clothing and equipment and that stuff. And we really had very little to do with the Arabs. We had no occasion to associate with the Arabs. Although we did have one in the company that worked here with the mess hall, and they called him Friday. And sometimes you can't say how often. Sometimes 2 times a week, sometimes once every 2 or 3 weeks, we would get a hot meal brought up to us. We'd come up there with the cooks, feed us our hot food. But then when we went to Sicily, they wouldn't let him go with us. They wouldn't let him go. Okay.
Did he want to go?
He wanted to go.
What was it? I know that they a lot of times, as far as getting fed on the front lines, how often were you able to kitchen the kitchen trucks up, or did you have to usually eat the sea rations?
When you're in a stationary position, like we were at Chaumont, we made the invasion of Omaha. We went directly through, and about June 12th or 13th, I don't remember, we took Chaumont, which was up on the ridge line. The rest of the regiment caught up with us and came up at the bottom. Chaumont is up on the ridge line. There's a main road running from Caen to St. Lo, and we cut that road in two. And the American troops on our right was way behind us, and the British on our left were behind us. We were out like that on a salient out, sticking out like that. But our S4 came up, and the kitchens were in the back, and it wasn't unusual hot meal, say every third or fourth day. They'd come up at night, and you go back. Of course, this is dangerous too. Activity and movement invariably will draw attention. You don't, in the infantry, you never want to draw attention to yourself. You want to get down in your goddamn hole, be quiet, stay there, don't bother anybody, don't let anybody bother you, just sleep and bringing up the mess truck, hearing the motors run, and you'd be surprised how quiet the war is. You'd be absolutely amazed at how quiet it is at night. And then suddenly you have people shooting here and noise and artillery and that. But as far as quietness, there'll be 1,000 men facing me, and you won't hear anything. Don't notice at all. You smell. Americans smell like canvas. Wool and canvas. You'd smell wet wool and canvas. The Germans smell of leather. They just have a leathery smell. And you can be on a patrol and get out real quiet, and the column of them will go by you, tell them as they go by. You just smell that leather. And it has a distinct odor to it. Very different from anything. We took Bonn, the city of Bonn, in a night attack. What saved us is we had an M10 tank store leading the column. And it looked like a German tank. We're going down the main street into Bonn at nighttime, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. 10 leading us, I company behind it, machine gun platoon bringing up the rear of I company. The German column is coming up this way. We're within this close to each other. And they saw this M10 and they thought it was a German tank. Well, we knew better than to mess with it. And we just kept walking and they kept walking. But you could smell them. You could smell them as they went by. First, they never used deodorant in the daytime. And all men think about but that leather and that there's just a leathery stink about them. And Americans, when they go by you, and if you're real quiet, you can smell that canvas and a wet OD, because you're always wet. But we just passed each other.
Even would it in the desert as well?
In the desert, yeah, particularly in the desert. Because you sweat so much. In daytime, and this is what's bad about desert. Daytime, you sweat. Nighttime, you freeze. Because the temperature fluctuates between 110 or maybe even 120 down to 60. Well, that's a hell of a drop on the human body. Particularly in daytime, if you're bringing wet with sweat and you're sitting in a hole at nighttime, freezing to death at 60 degrees. It's cold in the desert at night. It gets hot in the desert at daytime. But I would say, if we brought it down to a nutshell, to me, mentally, the toughest part of World War II was Africa, because the realization of my own inadequacy, our own inabilities, our own shortcoming in equipment, the superiority of the German soldier, the superiority of their knowledge of equipment, and the superiority of warfare, their knowledge of time was so much better than mine. Let's say had our superiority, and after the whole campaign, they had their superiority. Many weeks at a time, we could not move in daytime. If you did, one Jeep would attract 2 or 3 fighter planes on it. We could not move a day. We had to move it now. So, from that point of view, Africa was difficult, the most difficult. But from a killing, that's where more people get killed on the German side and our side. From Aachen through the Hürtgen Forest to the Rhine River was the most difficult. And it rained and it snowed and it was so damn miserable cold and we were so hungry. And the first division never hollers. When they go into attack, you never hear one man say a word. Everybody knows what they're doing. And a whole company can move right by you and you never wake up. That's how good we were at playing. But at Wonder Hammock, we had been out in the cold so long that we started to take a village. And we knew that this village would get us in out of the cold. And you should have heard the Americans holler. We screamed, and the poor Germans that were in those buildings must have thought we was goddamn maniacs. Because we screamed and we run at them buildings, and we got in those buildings and we wouldn't leave. It was unbelievable. But we've been out in the weather for 5 or 6 weeks, freezing to death. And I mean freezing. And no improper equipment again.
Well, which climate was there, would you say, if you had to compare North Africa, Sicily, Normandy?
I'd say the climate
was the toughest.
From the climatic point of view, the most difficult part of World War II was from the beginning of the Bulge, which was middle December 44, until March 45. We got to the Oran. It never stopped raining or snowing. I was never dry. I was never warm. That was pretty tough. And to think that our companies were so low in manpower, our platoons were so low in manpower, and later I found out that we had 265,000 living in Paris, living in rooms in Paris, the American Army. 265,000. Now, roughly there's 18,000 to an infantry division. And we were cut down to maybe, I'd say our whole division probably had 8,000 people. And there's 265,000 living in Paris. And we're not getting anybody to come up. And of course we knew it, The Americans have run the price up so high. And we wonder, why the hell won't those people come up there? And it was a trying time, really a trying time. But we survived. We managed to get through it.
Mr. Frank, do you keep in touch with any of your buddies?
Oh yeah, Jesus, yeah. If I hadn't, my life would have been miserable. My company commander in Africa later became a Major General in the G1 of the Pentagon of the Army. I was sent to the 10th Infantry Regiment in Camp Roberts, California. I don't know if you know anything about California, but Camp Roberts is halfway between San Francisco and LA in the desert. And it's an infantry regiment. I had 600 men in my company. And some of them were on jump belt training and eating with the quartermaster. And, I'm a first sergeant in the rifle company. I've been a first sergeant now for 13 years, or 11, 12 years. And I go to a damn company that has 600 men in it. And the most I ever saw was 40 or 50 men. They were all out under the University of Michigan was running scientific. What they did was it was working on CDEC. It's called Combat Development Experimentation Center. They had an infantry regiment. And the scientists from University of Michigan come in and say, Sergeant Franklin, I need 50 men here Monday morning with certain equipment. I had to get him 50 men. So I said, why don't you stand this down there? And they said, well, you can't get on this out there. No one's ever got a gun through. I said, watch. And I sat down and I wrote General Corley a little note. I said, General Corley, I'm stuck in the 10th Infantry Regiment. I'd like to get back into the American Army. Can you do anything about 2 weeks later? I was in Fort Riley, Kansas, back in the 1st Division. You've got to stay in contact with 1st Division. Even now, stay in contact with them. And they take care of you, too. Oh, I guarantee you they'll take care of you. I had a sergeant. He's from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. His name is Albert. First day he was in my platoon, he won the Silver Star in the front line, Stolberg. The machine gun started shooting out a German machine gun. And Albert said, what the hell is that son of a bitch shooting at us for? He's one of them funny, like Popeye, that Joe. And he said, anybody go with me, we're going to knock it out. And everybody said, you're crazy, Joe. Sit down. He took a rifle, he went around machine gun out. And of course, we had to give him Silver Star. It was crazy stuff. Well, in Korea, he became an officer in Korea. Then after Korea, they had a reduction in force and kicked you back to sergeant. Well, he's over in recon platoon of the 16th Infantry, and I had D company. And he got in some young lieutenant who thought he knew everything on the front. Jones did something, and this young lieutenant changed it. And Jones took him into the woods and whipped his ass. And so he called me and he said, Dan, I'm in deep trouble. And I said, what is it? He told me. I said, well, wait a minute. So one of our other buddies, the sergeant major of the division, Walt Cannon, up at I called Walt. I said, Walt, Hal's in trouble. Well, I said, what has he done? I said, you don't want to know what he's done. I want you to get him transferred to recon platoon, headquarters 16th, and the D company, where I can take care of him. He said, I'll let you know. So 2 hours later, he called me back and said, we're cutting orders right now to send him over. So Al came over and I just typed up Article 15 to an officer, restricted 14 days to the company area, living in the company area. So we got a new man in the company. I want to punish him. But the man we had, a quarterback at Texas A&M, I thought was his name. Young company, good company. And he says, talk, what is this? And I said, well, we got an old combat soldier here who's got his ass in hot waiting out. You want to help me? He said, yeah, and he signed the company punishment. So a few days later, word come down that they're going to court-martial. Well, you can't court-martial him. He's already been punished. So the colonel calls me and Captain, what was his name? Jones? Was that his name? No, Al Jones is the sergeant. Whatever his name is. Call us down, the colonel calls us down. And, what the hell are you all doing? You going crazy? And Governor Glenn said, Top's business. So I told the colonel, we got a soldier that was my platoon in World War II. First day on the front line, he won the Silver Star, and we're going to court-martial him. In Korea, he's a second lieutenant, late first lieutenant, leading a company in Korea, a rifle company, and we're going to court-martial him. I said, I took care of him, and I would expect him to do the same. I would expect you to do the same. Colonel said, get the hell out of here and forget about it. We took care of Al Jones. Well, of course, Al Jones would have killed somebody for me. You know, when I left the company and become first sergeant, sergeant major, he became first sergeant. Then he retired and come to Knoxville. And he was supposed to have gone to work in the security, the Oak Ridge security guard or something. I don't know what happened to him. I hadn't heard, because I don't want to be around him. Because when I retired, we had a job over here at the service section on Lake Maria. Well, here, you know you want home. And a black come in, young black brother, come in and said, it's a holdup. And Al said, what the hell do you mean it's a holdup? It's a night job. What the hell do you mean it's a holdup? The guy said, this is a holdup. Al pulled out a pistol and shot him 5 times. It was fun. You're crazy. You know? Al, don't mess around. He killed this nigger. And he didn't shoot him once, he shot him 5 times. And there was a big stink about that. You know, really 5 times. So I stayed away from that. No, I haven't heard from him in years. But the rest of us, I got pictures all over there. All of them. We have reunions and we meet, and people that we thought were dead come to the meetings. And when I went to Belgium, I met a Belgian boy that was in the Belgium Underground that was with my company during the war. Yeah, he took us. What was happening? He's riding his bicycle by a German outfit that was hid in some woods. They were trying to escape back to Germany, and we were cutting them off in their lawns. So they stopped him, made him dig 2 graves for 2 dead Germans. And so he come over to our company, and we was with our company, opportunity. And he told Captain Richmond where these Germans were. So we loaded up 3 light tanks, section machine guns, and a platoon of riflemen, and we went over to sweep up these Germans. One of them there in a little square patch of woods. And I told Captain Richmond, I said, "Sarah, something fishy. This Belgian boy was with us in the Jeep. Infantry would never get in that patch of woods. There's no way. Now, these big woods down here, they're a little trailer." And this guy said, "No," said, "they're in these woods." And Captain Richmond said, "Well, take your 2 guns and go down to that house down there. The road goes behind it." And he showed them that. Set it up, and when we hit here, they'll try to run that way, so you can stop them before, don't let them get over the road. So I went down and set up the machine guns on 2 Jeeps. Tanks lined up and went toward the woods, riflemen behind them. Then the tanks went around the woods, and the riflemen went through the woods. And out of the back of the woods come a sea of blue, 1,400 young boys, no weapons, just running. So I started firing down the street. Out of the 1,400, 200 of them woke. The tanks kept firing, and they were firing canister shells, little 37 millimeter canister shells that explode and send out a little ball. And of course, while I was firing, the tanks couldn't see me. And when I stopped firing, they kept firing, and then the Germans started running again. And I tried to keep them from crossing the road. They had to go over a fence over this road. And boy, we just ate them out. And I always felt bad about it because they were kids, German boys, 14, 15 years old, that was drafted, and they were supposed to be on anti-aircraft duty. They were just children, and we just saw them. So I told my son, I said, "We'll go there. We'll find that place, and you and I'll sit down and have a drink. We'll forget about it." So when I got to Mons, I called Shape Headquarters, military map, 125, I identified myself, and said, "I need an area, the area northeast of Mons." And they said, "Well, we don't have anything else." And I said, "What? Are you in the damned army or not?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "God damn, you don't have a map?" "Well, we got some street maps of mine." I said, "I'm not interested." They gave me a captain. And he said, "No, we can't help you. We don't have you. All of our maps are Russia and all this stuff." So the woman who owned the hotel or run the hotel, she heard me talking. And she said, "Well, I know a man in Mons that has a tank museum. And he knows all about the 1st Division." And I said, "Well, I'm not interested in tanks. I just want to find this thing." And she said, "Well, if I call him, will you meet him?" And I said, "Sure, you can call him." And they have an organization, the 1st Infantry Division organization in Mons, the people of Mons. So he came, and we had dinner, and we're talking. And of course, I told Mark and my wife about this fellow, what he looked like, because I thought he was German. When he come walking up down the road to us, I thought he was a German. Had on kind of a khaki uniform. He looked German, and I was a little suspicious of him. But anyway, this man who owned the tank museum, he said, "I have a friend that was in the underground. He may be able to help you." And I said, "Well, good." He said, "He can't come until 9 o'clock. So would it be all right for us to eat and drink?" I said, "Sure, no problem." So we're eating, and walks this fellow, and he has a picture. And he hands me the picture. And it's this young boy that had joined us and led us over to the regiment. And I said, "Mark, well, I've told you, pick out the man that I've been talking to you about on this picture. There's about 10 men in the picture." Mark said, "That's him right there, Daddy." And the boy said, "That's me." And that was him. So we went to the first division, and we went out and found the author and got drunk, and we had a hell of a time. We really did. Okay. And it's been bothering him too. It really bothered him. Well, I hope I didn't screw you up.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're sure welcome.
I
You need more?
appreciate your taking the time to speak with me. I think we've hit all the major points and even more.
You got enough to work with.
Oh, I want to thank you very much
My pleasure.
for taking the time to talk with me.
Well, I'm pleased to find someone interested in America's history. After all,
It's fascinating.
you know, I shook hands with us in Churchill. Not bad. Not bad. And Ambassador Gavin, General Gavin, the 82nd. Can I show my pictures for you?